My question is, do you use Zoom at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Do you
so
want to
again,
leave the chat open so you could go?
I can
like,
see Austin,
give
I
a new
see
chat?
Ben Lane. So again, in 3 minutes, Dr. Benjamin Lane
So
is in
if
this
you
room.
want me to chat
who have better
on,
vision,
when
control.
people chat in, you'll be able to read it.
Maybe you can mute
Otherwise,
yourself,
I
Austin.
close the chat.
Austin, maybe you can mute yourself.
well,
Unmute
Yeah, I
that.
know, but you're also talking out loud.
No, so I'm saying maybe you can mute his speaker while because everybody's listening to you. The in the main room, it was my mistake, is Dr. Robert Young. And Dr. Robert Young is going to talk about one of the real ingredients in the COVID vaccine and what does it do for you. So if you'd like to go into the main room, all you have to do is the button below is hit leave room. And then you'll be in the main room to listen to Dr. Young. Or if you stay in this room, you'll be able to hear Dr. Benjamin Lane.
fine. I'm just trying to decide, well, I guess this is good to show on my gray hair. Oh, thank you. That's good. And let me take my wires. Yes. I guess I should start now.
Yeah.
Hello.
Benjamin Lane in person.
Whoa. And we are talking today, food for better vision. And I think I should say a few words to introduce my background. There's so much in the media today that we don't know whether to believe it or not believe it. And that's a problem not only in America, but even throughout the world. So I just want to say a few words at the beginning about my own personal background. For those who don't know, or I should ask first, who has heard my lectures before? Thank you. Okay, so I have 6 degrees. My first was a bachelor's degree from Princeton. I was a philosophy of science major and minored in mathematics and physics. My mentor at Princeton was John G. Kemeny, who, outside of having the highest average ever at Princeton University as a student, was a full professor in 3 departments at Princeton, and also was the mathematical assistant to Albert Einstein. And before he left to become president of Dartmouth, before I graduated, he said, Ben, make sure to go down to the mathematics faculty lounge tomorrow morning. Be the first one there before anyone else comes. So that they won't kick you out as a student. I was the first one there. All 25 seats soon became filled. And so I sat on the floor right in front of the first row of speakers. Behind me was a professor attendee in mathematics or physics, another professor. And then the third seat away from me was Albert Einstein. Wow. And who were the presenters? The presenters were the discoverers of the modern computer. There are many attempts at computers, but the way we use computers today was what they were talking about at this session in 1953. My professor Kemeny is the one who wrote or co-authored. He was the principal author of the first basic language for computer science called BASIC. Remember, the original languages were BASIC and Fortran. So anyhow, several years later, quite a bit more than a dozen years, Professor Abraham Spector was invited by a major publication to comment on my research. I had just presented research at American Public Health Association meeting in Montreal, Canada. And it was on a new major risk factor for cataract. And that's where foods come in. And so Professor Spector said he was excited by this discovery, and his comments were printed in the article that was featured on the first page of this publication on this new risk factor for cataracts. Shortly thereafter, I received an invitation from Professor Spector. Who was Professor Abraham Spector? He was a nominee for the Nobel Prize. He vied with Linus Pauling. They both were involved in the discovery of vitamin C, but he was also involved with as competing for the Nobel Prize for discovery of the structure of DNA. So anyhow, he invited me to join his lab to further my research in his lab on cataract. That year that I joined his lab, he won the highest award in research ophthalmology from the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology for his research in cataract. And why was he so interested? Because in my research, I showed that mercury poisoning was affecting the principal enzymes that were preventing cataract. Superoxide dismutase, SOD, glutathione peroxidase, GSPX, and catalase. And that's exactly what he was working on. So working independently, we were able to show the same things. I worked with him for 17 years at Columbia University in the Department of Ophthalmology and the Research Division. So the point I'm trying to make is I do know a few things, and I did know a few people. And I've got also a degree in human nutrition from Columbia University. Before I got my last degree from Columbia was from the School of Public Health in the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Columbia University. And it was entitled in eye disease epidemiology and nutritional ophthalmology. So they required me to take the entire didactic program in ophthalmology because they didn't want me to be in the shadow of the ophthalmologists. And so that's my background. Now, what I want to say is about food. And I have quite a few notes, and we have used 7 minutes to talk about myself. Now let's talk about, I talk about myself to know that I do have credentials. I'm a fellow of the American College of Nutrition, as well as a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry, as well as a fellow of the College of Optometrists in Vision Development, as well as a fellow of the American Association of Advancement Science. And I have a few more. But the point is that for vision improvement, discipline to achieve diet and lifestyle modifications is more easily achieved when we understand appetite mechanisms. What's causing the major problems in nutrition today? People are being tricked by large corporations who very intelligently know how to encourage people to eat more of their food by making the food taste irresistible. Is it moral to make foods taste irresistible? Is it moral to take a food that maybe has no nutritional value and make it taste so wonderful by putting in a signal? And the signal is kind of saying, this food has something you need. So signals include the principal signals. And so many of us are familiar with the name David Kessler. David Kessler was head of the Food and Drug Administration, and he did a quite good job, actually. Does the Food and Drug Administration have intelligent, excellent employees? You bet. But quite often they're influenced by who is the president and what corporations are influencing the director to prevent some of their research being published. But when the research is published, it can be quite good. Well, Kessler wrote a book on the end of overeating, and he's saying almost the same thing I'm saying, the problems with sugar, fat, salt, so forth. I've been saying for many years before I wrote his book, and I put into a simple mnemonic. Here's a mnemonic.
So you see it mostly in cereals, which are given to children as they're growing up. Your sugar, your fat, your...
Yes, so we need to understand what's happening. I've written this out so I can say it more quickly. And it says, it may seem hard to believe, but almost all humans are endowed with a fantastic appetite mechanism. When I ask the question of patients, is your appetite good, bad, or other? A man would say, oh, I have a fantastic appetite. You can fill the whole table with food and I'll eat everything. Oh, good, thank you. I don't know, is that a little better?
Yes.
Oh, good, thank you. So, and then along comes a very neat, a perfect looking lady, and they ask her, is your appetite good, bad, or other? Says, I have a terrible appetite. I'm very picky. I only eat certain foods that I find acceptable. The point is, we all have excellent appetites, but we get tricked into ignoring what appetite mechanism is taking us. And what tricks us can be listed in a simple list. I can give this list to anyone attending. Some simple, short S mnemonics. Mnemonics is spelled M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C-S, mnemonics. And the only letter you have to remember is S. S as in Stephen, S as in Samuel, S as in state, S as in stop. So the first word is stop. And the second word needs an interpretation, is supplemental. What do I mean by supplemental? Something added to a food, either to enrich it or to make it taste better, whatever. But it's stop, supplemental, subversive. Subversive what? Additives beginning with an A or S beginning with an S? Signals. Stop, supplemental, subversive signals. So we have seasonings, making food taste better. Seasonings can be very health-giving, yes? But we don't want them to trick us into eating something. We have the seasoning on the side and the food over here. You're eating the food and you fill up on it, you feel satisfied. You can always have the seasonings later. One of the seasonings would be salt. Is salt bad? good or other. Salt is necessary, but in very small quantities. We need the right amount of salt. I recommend don't add salt to anything unless you're putting it away and you want to add salt as a preservative. Otherwise, don't add salt. But if you think you're low on salt, take half a teaspoon of salt, put it to your lips, taste it, tastes wonderful. Do I want another one? Oh no, that felt okay, feels fine. That's the way you need to apprise, do I need salt? If you salt your foods too fully, you're creating a nightmare for the kidneys. And the kidneys then start blocking up in the tubules. And if the tubules are blocked up, then we come into another problem. So if I ask the question, is elevation of blood pressure good, bad, or other? Elevation of blood pressure. The general comment, elevation of blood pressure is bad. I'm running up a hill being chased by 2 tigers. I gotta get my blood pressure up or the tigers will beat me. So the elevation of blood pressure is something the body regulates to serve a purpose. So when we have vascular hypertension measured when we're recumbent, lying down on a cot or sitting in a chair, calm and collected, and our blood pressure is high, something's wrong. But the fact that the blood pressure modulates to serve our needs is magnificent. So if the problem is vascular, that needs to be addressed. 50 years ago, advertisements in all the magazines said, remember, your medical doctors are advising you that once you start on an antihypertensive medication, you must continue it for the rest of your life. Don't discontinue just because you think you're feeling all right. You must continue it the rest of your life. My comment at the time was, if it were in China at the time, those people would be arrested, be put in jail, might be hanged. Because that was an irresponsible comment. What they should have said is, remember, if you don't change your lifestyle, you must continue this medication all your life. If you start a program of walking, gradually building up, don't go out the first day and run 6 miles and drop in exhaustion. Build up gradually. And the medical society, medical institutions, all the best hospitals have programs for people with hypertension to address this. But don't add salt to the food to make it taste better. If the food doesn't taste good enough to eat, don't eat it. Or eat only as much as you think you need to eat. We can, if we need something to function, we need calories to function. It's okay to take calories, it's okay to take coffee. Coffee is a new health drink, depending on what we add to it. Coffee is bean water. Beans come in all qualities. Water comes in all qualities. Sugar that we add to it is no. If you have to make coffee taste better, then there's something wrong with the what you're adding. There's something wrong with the coffee, or you don't need it. You need just the sugar. Now, if you need the sugar to go on to talk, you need to get a high. You're feeling real low. You can get a 15, 20-minute high from sugar. Then you get a hypoglycemic reaction if you're low in chromium. So what foods are rich in chromium, what are low? We can talk about that in a moment. Let me give the rest of this some simple, this is all S's, some simple, short S mnemonics with an MN. Stop, supplemental, subversive, signals. All these foods are signals. Seasonings, spices, salt, sweeteners. How about a list of sweeteners beginning with S? This is fantastic. Syrups, sugar, sucrose, saccharin, sucralose, stevia, splendor. Stevia is a vegetable. If you eat a stevia leaf, there's nothing wrong with that if it's a good quality leaf. It has nutrients that we can use. But when you add it to food to make a food they would hardly eat, and now you make it taste so good that we want to keep eating and more when we don't need it, that's the major cause of obesity throughout the world now today. And David Kessler points it out in his book too, which he wrote many years after I started saying these things. Well, look at the Chinese diet and the Indian diet and many Latin American diets. They're rich in seasonings that were very important at that time as preservatives. And so people could eat foods that start to spoil and still have flavor. And they developed the art of cooking, and cooking became a masterpiece of work with the people in Southeast Asia. And then Marco Polo brought it to Italy, according to legend, to Venice, and that began what happened to all the world with that type of cooking. Or whatever, I think the root of cooking goes way beyond legend. Anyhow, coming back to, that was a simple list to stop supplemental subversive signals. But here's the point. In nature, well, I said that we're endowed with this fantastic appetite mechanism that helps to program our food intake, actually program it. When we're eating and suddenly realize what I want is more protein, we direct our attention to get more protein. Unless the food we're eating is so loaded with sugar that we can't stop eating until we finish it, or until our stomachs are full. So that encourages us to eat more than we need. But it only works for natural foods that have not been, an interesting word, doctored. So our appetite mechanism works perfect, but it only works for natural foods that have not been doctored. That's it. That could be the end of my lecture. But we want to mention some of the traps that we get in eating what could be good foods if we go overboard and get poisoned by them. So in nature, natural sweet foods include fresh, ripe fruits and fresh, sweet vegetables, foods that are naturally endowed with vitamin C, in addition to B complex. Observation is that the natural sweetness in these foods act as a signal to those very few animals, including humans, that cannot synthesize vitamin C. My cat synthesizes her own vitamin C. So we did an experiment. We found she finds nothing especially attractive in sweet foods containing natural vitamin C as compared to not containing natural vitamin C. When we take the sugar from these fruits and veggies and add to it a junk food, our brains get a signal to keep eating, but that's likely to diminish, not likely to contain vitamin C on board. And so we're encouraged to keep eating. We never get the signal that our nutritional needs are satisfied, and so sweetness subversively encourages us to eat more and more. Well, then you heard me say before, is it mild to make foods taste irresistible? Translating to enhance the meaning, is it health-giving to take a food that our appetite mechanisms would otherwise reject, and adding a sweetener, we are tricked into eating a food we otherwise would not have eaten or not have eaten so much. And the problem is not just the calories with the sweetener, but especially the fact we're encouraged to eat food that we did not need to eat. So this argument says the problem with sugar is the calories in the sugar. Therefore, we can give you sweeteners that give you no calories, and that's okay. That's not okay. Yes, you're saving some calories, but the major investment in calories comes from eating too much, which the sweeteners encourage us to do. All right. We honor our forefathers who in the days before refrigeration and fast transport of foods pioneered the use of cooking and the use of spices to tremendously extend the food supply so that masses of people could survive from one day to the next. But most of the shelf-life enhanced foods do not prevent heart disease, do not prevent eye diseases, especially because essential vitamins and other nutrients have been destroyed by processing for shelf life. Foods that prevent cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma. For many years, I've been in the study from Harvard University on health in men over 40. So that's a lot of years. The leader of that program was, what was his name? I was just about to say his name. It'll occur to me in a moment. He invited, yeah. I invited him to give the keynote lecture at ARVO in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, when I chaired a meeting called NERVO at ARVO, NERVO at ARVO, Nutritional Epidemiology Research in Vision Ophthalmology, Association for Research in Vision Ophthalmology. Here's the keynote speaker, gave a tremendous talk. I agree with everything he said. At the end of his talk, we sat down together and discussed our mutual interests. He said, you know, Ben, the nutrients you found that are preventing most eye disease, you can say that the researchers at Harvard have confirmed your results. We're finding exactly the same thing. Well, we can say beyond that, because our study included men over 40, that if men over 40 are on a diet with those nutrients, then that in itself will ensure that they're not likely to get heart disease. Now, if we die of a heart attack, is that heart disease or it could be something else? Well, heart disease means a disease that's affected the heart function. Whereas you could get a heart attack from too much cholesterol in the bloodstream as a circulatory problem. So a person can be very vigorous and performing magnificent feats of running and skating and all those things, and then die of a heart attack a few months later because, yes, their bellies have gotten big, abdominal fat, and eating the wrong foods, triggered by all these bad habits. All right, so what are these nutrients you found? Well, these are the foods that the Harvard group found. And that's one way to make it more simple. They found that the most effective food group throughout the world was fresh, ripe fruit, F-R-U-I-T, fruit. What we found, and when I've done my studies, I found there's been some adverse publicity about fresh fruit. People who get up in the morning and have a banana or 2 bananas because they're so easy to eat, and they're low in chromium. And they feel good when they eat the bananas, and 20 minutes later they crash from hypoglycemia because they needed chromium to potentiate the insulin receptors to accept the glucose, the blood sugar, from the bloodstream to fuel muscles and to go into storage as glycogen for use later. That would be safe blood sugar. When blood sugar goes too high, as in diabetes, that's dangerous. it perfuses all the body dangerously, not in a form that the body can use well when it's flooded with too much. So anyhow,
What's better
Walter,
than the banana?
I'm sorry,
What's better than the banana? What is better than a banana?
oh, well, it's better to have good nutrition, then you can eat a banana. If you eat the banana by itself and you don't have adequate chromium, then you get a rush of sugar into the bloodstream, and the chromium is required to potentiate the insulin receptors so they can accept a lot of that sugar into the muscles and glycogen storage areas. So we're going to get into other foods. So the next food that the Harvard group found useful was cereals. Now there's a big campaign in literature against grains. They say that prehistoric man did not eat the quantity of grains that we eat today. That's true. But the human organism has adapted a little bit over the centuries, over the thousands of years. The population in India has a different sensitivity to milk from their cows than we have here in the United States. Now you notice that some stores are selling milk with A protein or B protein to cater to a large Indian population. We're gathering where I live in New Jersey. So anyhow, cereals can be very good food for humans, but almost all the cold cereals, if we eat too much of them, are cancer promoters. They don't themselves produce cancer, but they promote cancer. So the one group of cereals that the Harvard group found useful were the oat cereals, and Quaker plain oats worked, but honey nut oats was not recommended. And those were at the top of the list. So Quaker oats, which is, it doesn't have to, it could be stone ground or it could be just the regular rolled oats. You see kids who put their hands into a box of Quaker rolled oats and eat them directly without any milk, water, or anything. And the Quaker oats do not have to be cooked. You don't get a lot more out of them eating them raw, but you get more fiber. And you get a little bit more eating raw. And Quaker actually published on one of their boxes about 3 years ago. They published it once and never repeated that again. There could be safety issues with people who have weakened immune responses, people with AIDS, for example. But now people with AIDS are getting medication, and many of them are doing quite well. Well, Cheerios is good. I didn't say, I said Cheerios. Honey nut Cheerios is not recommended because the sugar content. But the plain Cheerios is a good cereal. But the problem with it, that's baked at too high a temperature, whereas a Quaker rolled oats is only steamed at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Question?
How about monk fruit?
How about
Monk fruit.
monk fruit is interesting for nutritional value, but that's something, let's talk about that later, because that's something most people can indulge in too much. So I'd like to get into broad generalities.
So we have cereals and fruit.
And food. So, and then the next group is raw vegetables.
Raw vegetables.
Raw vegetables.
Well, I'd like to say one more thing. I'm a farmer from California, and they're using heavy glyphosate or Roundup on the grain crops. Heavy Roundup or
Yes.
On grain crops.
And Roundup killed 3 of my trees.
Yeah, and it's in our grains. It's in our grains more and more. The glyphosate.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to mention that because it is, I'm seeing the use out there much more heavily, where they spray the whole crop to kill the plants so that everything ripens.
Yes, no, 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 this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And
No, it doesn't come
now,
off. It
the
doesn't-
Harvard group did not measure the glycosates that I'm aware of. I'm not aware that the Harvard group measured the glycosates in humans, but they found that humans who lived long lives without developing cataracts, without developing glaucoma, ate more of these foods than not. that these were the foods that promoted longer, healthier lives. So many of our other foods that we're eating are breads, are cereals, everything. That's why so many people are turning to organic now. Now, but a lot of people are eating organic candy. Some of the organic candies are useful because they have vitamins added to them, but that's not the way to go. The way to go is to train ourselves to eat healthier foods. Organic candy may be okay for a quick snack in an emergency. All right, so the point.
What's the fourth one? The fourth one.
Fourth.
Yeah, more vegetables, fruit, and cereal.
Well, you need clean water.
Water, okay.
You need vitamins. You need minerals. You need good source of vitamins and minerals. So I have a list of the top vegetables for the retina. And at the end of the session today, please sign in. We have two lists. One is if you'd like to make an appointment. So we'll call you and you can schedule an appointment for next year or 2 years from now or whatever. The other list is if you want handouts. I mean, these are in areas: glaucoma, macula, and cataract, and floaters, any of these areas, and other. So just put your email address on there or your street address, and we'll get them out to you. Now, then on the foods that, let me ask if any particular foods that you're interested in this group. Can I see hands for glaucoma, either you or someone you know or someone in the family? Glaucoma, special nutrition to prevent glaucoma. Okay, I see some hands, okay. Cataracts. We can make cataracts in anybody. I'm going to be 90 years old in June. I don't have cataracts. I know how to get myself cataracts several ways. One way, prominent in India, China developed these, not exactly a visor, but a coolie hat. And I have one, I wear it on when we exhibit in a street fair. And the coolie hat protects against the sun magnificently. It's so broad, it even protects the shoulders from rain. But that protects against cataracts. Too much sunshine directly on the eyes. Secondly, why was I invited to do my research at Columbia? Because I asked people how much tuna fish they're eating. As the ones who are eating the most tuna fish, I found some patients that they're eating a can of tuna 5 days a week that produced a nuclear cataract of severe consequences within a year. That's the equivalent of 10 servings a week.
Was that from the mercury?
Each from the mercury, from albacore tuna, it's the most common tuna in America. Now you can get light tuna has less mercury. What does that mean? My time's running out? No, I have 9 minutes left of this. Okay, so mercury is one of the main problems there. Now, you could have 10 servings of, I said there was 10 servings a week, right? You can have 10 servings, 1 serving a week, every week in the year, and not get cataracts. But if you take them that concentrated, your body can't clear the mercury before it's exposed to more. So we measure the mercury concentration in hair. And hair is an excellent way. Hair is an excretion material. It's a great way to measure things that the body's trying to get rid of. It's fantastic. So we can tell what the person's overload is. And these patients then, we saw they were eating that much tuna. We saw that their mercury was fantastic in hair. Thank you. So that's little bit of the story on cataracts. That's a major factor. And a number of medications promote cataracts also. And there's a long list. Anyone who's interested in that subject, we can go into a lot more detail. We can reverse the immediate effect of the glaucoma, the cataract induced by mercury, to produce little bubbles in the anterior surface of the crystalline lens. I can see that within a few days of someone eating a large serving of tuna. Bubbles. And then those bubbles migrate to the back of the lens. And when they accumulate in the back of the lens, they prevent an enzyme from being utilized by the body. The enzyme sodium potassium adenosine triphosphatase. That enzyme takes sodium out of the lens, brings potassium in, keeps the lens clear. They develop then a posterior subcapsular cataract, damaging the clearing mechanism in the lens, produces a nuclear cataract. So the mercury poisoning causes two types of cataract, posterior subcapsular and nuclear. If a person is taking, if a person is taking in a lot of, I'm getting a signal here.
I'm suggesting that you might ask for questions.
Oh, yeah, well, okay, let me just then briefly say, macular degeneration, there's some things that are very clear that I want you to know about. But if you go and say, everybody has macular degeneration, these are things that cause it, these don't. And you find a lot of things that don't cause it, do cause it. A lot of things that do cause it, don't cause it. So one of the beautiful examples of that is in floaters, vitreous floaters. I could ask how many people here, someone says I have floaters. One of the major causes in floaters is people taking too much vitamin C. And Linus Pauling wrote me when he read a science reporter's write-up on this. And I discussed it with him at length. And he cut his intake of vitamin C after he read this. The ideal amount to take as a supplement is between 500 and 1,000 a day. Negative veds start coming at 1250. But if you have an emergency that's using vitamin C for medical reasons, to keep it out, someone just ate a too large a serving of shark or swordfish or shark fin soup. Then, as they did at a dinner in China, banquet in China, they served all three of them. Then a high dose of vitamin C, 10 grams, and you stay in your room and have flushing bowel movements, hopes to get it out. So there are a lot of these things on a lot of diseases. If you're interested in them, then indicate on the handout and we'll send you the handouts. Okay, now I think I should take questions. So we have a lot of things on all these issues and we need to talk more about them. They're important and we can talk several days on the subject. So let me take some questions from the audience here now. We have now about 3.5 minutes to go.
So about the monk fruit,
What
do you think about monk fruit?
Well, what do you feel are the reasons you were taking monk fruit?
I guess because
First of all, it's a good source. It can be a good source of vitamin C.
yeah, I like it. If I want something sweet, I would rather use that. I don't really use sugar.
Okay.
So I was wondering if it's good or bad, or what are
Well,
your thoughts?
No, what's good about it is eat it until you feel you've had enough.
Right.
If you have other things you'd rather eat, you'll stop. What's good about good quality foods is that we can eat until we feel satisfied. Let's take, for example, the rolled oats. Or no, let's take, for example, hard wheat berries. That's the wheat kernels. I buy them from a health food store, a whole bag of wheat kernels. And I soak, not smoke. I soak maybe a half cup of wheat kernels in a jar of water, in half a jar of water. And I'll put it in the refrigerator. And then when the wheat berries are about to start growing, then they're ready to eat as wheat berries, or to allow them to grow into a wheat that you can eat as new grain. Well, if you eat a handful of wheat berries that have been soaked, you feel full. And you feel like you've had a meal. You feel like you've had full protein. And if your mother said, come on, have more, you'd say, I don't feel hungry anymore. And that's the right answer. So in the comments here, which I could have read real fast, and then we would come across a comment about really good foods we fill up on quickly. Poor foods, we can keep eating and eating and eating because we don't feel our needs requited. So when you eat monk food and any fruit and any food that tastes good naturally, that you haven't enhanced it. Now we can take bad tasting food and cook it and make it taste good. That's a problem. It's a virtue of the problem. It helps keep people from starving to death. That's good. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah. So somebody's asking, well, first of all, somebody's asking what your email is.
Oh, that's a very good question, because the email on my website is one that I would like to be, and it may have been corrected, but Google said I can't use it. So I think the one that's posted in there, I get like 200 messages a day.
So what email should I put in the chat? Just tell me the real one.
The one for people attending this meeting would be Benjamin, BenjaMin, Benjamin.Lane, Lane, 2012, that's the year 2012, at gmail.com. And that's the best one for people. The one that's on my website, we get like 200 messages a day. And if I don't know you're trying to reach me, we try eventually to get to them.
And then somebody asked, yeah, we are interested in the foods list.
Yes, yes. So add that on your on the slip that you fill out now, on the list that you sign in. And Dan, do you have a list of people? Have the list on the clipboards for people? I have the clipboards. I don't have the clipboards. Mahmoud has the clipboards, maybe. Okay, so no one can leave if they really want to sign these lists. You don't have to sign them, just put your name, email, or address. And maybe they're at the back of the room. I left 2 clipboards. Oh, no, you're right, I do have them. They're buried. No, I don't have them. I don't have them. They're in this room. Maybe in the back. Well, let me thank everybody for attending. I think our time is up. And very good, thank you. Okay, I have a regular list, it's all printed. And it's on 2 clipboards with a pen. Dan, you remember the clipboards with the pen?
It doesn't matter. There's a pen. Does anybody want to put the name in?
Oh, yes. I don't have email. Oh, I want
Yeah,
to.
put your address.
I have, I can, oh, okay.
You're saying you're so happy that the 2 years you finally. That's what I know you want to say. That's all I want to hear. I'm so happy that you. Thank you so much. You know what the Dalai Lama said? It's interesting that he can do 99 great things. If there's one thing wrong, that's what a person like us. And people do that in life. Yeah, people do that in life.
I was gonna write you, but I see
You're
you're not in the mood.
No, it's not necessary. Take a right. It's not necessary.
I was gonna say, you charge the same $15, but you made it 1/3 the size, so.
I was gonna charge $50, so you say $35.
Good one. Okay, I appreciate it. Good one. Dr. Lane, I sent you my hair sample. I mean, I sent it in.
All right.
Okay.
And
That's my
I want to know if you received the results.
I want to sign up for consultation.
I love you.
I'm legally blind. I can't see the biggie on the eye chart with either eye.
So what?
I want to sign up for an appointment with you for an